Hello, and welcome to the Listener's Guide. I'm Steve, and as you may have noticed, music has a lot of terms that mean more than one thing, and texture is no exception. The most all-encompassing definition is the combination of melody, harmony, and rhythm of a given piece, but as you may have noticed, there's really not much else to music at all, so we're kind of just saying the everything. So let's look at some examples. In Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the rhythm is very fast, and the melody and harmony move around quietly but have sudden outbursts. This busy texture gives off an anxious energy, like a caged animal trying to fend off its attackers. In contrast, Grieg's Morning Mood is very broad and open, meaning that if you tried to play it on the piano, you would really have to stretch your fingers. That, combined with a slow, quiet melody, gives the texture the sense of a very open landscape just waking up for the day. Because the definition of texture is clearly so wishy-washy, it's usually not included without some kind of modifier, and there are a few technical modifiers you'll see frequently. For instance, if we say something has a monophonic texture, we're talking about something with a single melody and nothing else, like Gregorian chant. In this case, the melody is like a string. You can see the shape, but that's it. It's a little one-dimensional. We could add some accompaniment though, say by adding a band behind the lead singer. This is the texture you're probably the most familiar with because it has been the most popular texture in music since it was applied to the first operas in the early 1600s, though there's no telling how far back it actually goes. If monophonic texture is a string, this texture, called homophonic, is a sheet. We still have the shape of the string providing the structure, and the melody is independent enough that you can sing it on its own without your audience batting an eye, but it feels filled out by the rest of the fabric underneath it. However, in the Western tradition, there's another texture that goes further back that works entirely differently. If you tried to pick a melody out of Renaissance church music, you would probably have some trouble choosing which one to sing. That's because it's what we call polyphonic. If monophony is a string, then polyphony is more like a braid. Each part is equally important, and the experience comes from hearing them interplay as they respond to each other and trade off moments of prominence. But when we're dealing with classical music of the 17th century through modern times, it's not always so clear-cut. Most pieces you hear will have a mix of all of the textures, and in the way that a cable knit scarf is kind of a piece of fabric, but also kind of a braid, you can interpret any given moment in a number of ways. Take the finale of Beethoven's Third Symphony, for instance. It's kind of generally a theme in variations, like we discussed in the video on binary form, and it starts off presenting the main theme monophonically with pizzicato strings. The first variation, however, is much more polyphonic with an interesting call and response between the low and high strings. By the time we get to the fourth variation, we have homophony, with the melody in the oboe and the rest of the orchestra just accompanying it. So as you can see, musical texture as a concept is both simple and complicated, but it will play a more and more important role as we learn about other forms throughout musical history. If you want to hear more about polyphony and a long-standing legend of the composer who saved it in the Catholic Church, make sure to support us on Patreon to catch the bonus video coming out in the next few days. And if you want to catch more of us here on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Listener's Guide.